Hey, good morning, everybody. Hello. Do you guys have sound?
Good morning.
Hey, there you are. Excellent. Just doing the technical, setting up my screen, making sure everything is in view. Excellent. Well, good morning. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Woo! Excited.
Great, Christian.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the 12th webisode of CollabTalk. I can't believe that it's been a year that we've been doing this. We've got something special planned for today. We'll just go through and do the regular introductions here, and then we'll jump into things. So my name is Christian Buckley. I am the Chief Marketing Officer with Beezy and an Office Server and Services MVP. And Naomi.
Hi, I'm Naomi Moneypenny. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Many Worlds. We create apps such as Synexi, which is machine learning for collaboration systems, recommendations of knowledge and expertise, and Streaming It Out Loud, which helps drive engagement and adoption of Yammer. So always happy to be here, and from actually getting to be home yet again, just because of CollabTalk, which is fantastic. And I guess I will hand it off to our one-legged member of the crew today.
One-legged members of the crew. That's just 2 legs.
So which one is it? Is it me or is it Mark?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Benjamin Niaulin. Work at SharePoint, and broke my foot recently, so I am at home. And happy to be here. Happy to be here. No, it's fun. We're going to be talking about some exciting stuff that happened, and of course, what we think is going to come in 2016. So, looking forward to it today. Mark?
Well, thanks, Benjamin. I'm Marc Anderson, Chief SharePoint Mechanic at Simpraxis Consulting here in Boston. That's about enough about me. Let's get into the really cool stuff.
Let's do that. And I just want to say that so this webisode is sponsored by my company, by Beezy, and also unofficially, no, they're not actually sponsored. Just want to throw that in there. So what we're going to be talking about today, 2 things. So we're going to go through and share each of our top 10 SharePoint Office 365 moments in news or other things that happened in 2015. And then we're going to jump right into our predictions for 2016. We're going to mix that up a bit. So is everybody ready to go through and talk about their favorites?
Sure.
All right. And of course, if there are questions or comments that come up about anything we discuss, please, we're monitoring, all of us monitoring chat, and so feel free to ask questions over in the chat bar, and we'll try to include that in the conversation as well. And so let's go through and kick things off. So what were your top 10 favorite moments for SharePoint in 2015? And Naomi, let's start things off with your list.
All right, so many SharePoint moments. It's been really, really tough to pick out some of the top things. So these are in no particular order, I will say. These are literally the way it dumped out of my brain, so I have no idea what that says about me, because the first couple are about, privacy and security, which is really slightly worried about myself, but never mind. But the first thing was really the Service Trust Portal. If you haven't played around with this in Office 365, it's a fantastic new service that's out there, and you can check it out. So you can see it even if you have a trial tenant in Office 365, and it allows you basically to see the compliance documents, see all the different ways that you're complying with the different compliance standards, and prove that out. The second one, as we put up there, was that very recently Yammer got its HIPAA compliance and EU model clauses, which I am so delighted. I really think it's an amazing jump forward for being integrated into the Office 365 suite, and then also being able to show that the value of collaboration networks, as I call them, I don't call it enterprise social, I call it enterprise collaboration networks. So when we think about that, we're showing that value and seeing that it's really part of Office 365 and not a separate new tool on the side. The third one is really around Azure because it's not a SharePoint related thing, but I'm so excited for what it means for how we manage services in terms of SharePoint, whether it's in a hybrid environment or in Office 365. So Azure Active Directory, which is what all of the services inside of Office 365 are integrating into, and obviously you as an Azure customer can also then manage your own domain controller on-prem, but your AD can live in the cloud, and now it allows you to actually manage all of those identities across the different areas, including Salesforce Cloud, all kinds of other clouds, not just the Microsoft Cloud. So it's an amazing thing. It has a big impact on how we do business and the kinds of work we do. Planner is the new tool. I know we're going to talk about Planner in this, so I won't talk about too much. But Planner I'm very excited about, just to be able to see that new functionality is there, looking at how we can create boards for better collaboration, for tasks, and looking at how we can work together more effectively.
I think that's on everybody's list as well with the availability that the announcement that came out in the last few days.
Yeah, that's right. Should be in first release. I haven't seen it yet, though, unless I'm checked this morning. Obviously, SharePoint 2016, really excited that we're getting that, and also that we have an on-prem version, and Microsoft is committed to an on-prem version, and we will have another on-prem version after this even. So that's really cool, too. So gotta love that. Gotta love that support as part of that. So. The other thing, so the Office 2016 release, I think we haven't talked a lot about it in this CollabTalk series, but I'm very excited for the tools that are in Office 2016. We've shown some of the integration that are there in the new Word, PowerPoint, Excel, and Outlook, and being able to use those in much more effective manner. So being able to do collaboration live when you're inside of PowerPoint or Word, for example, so you can do screen sharing, you can do Skype messaging, all of those things directly from the application, so it doesn't break your experience. Things like modern attachments inside of Outlook are like amazing, right? It's so simple to link attachments in there instead of having to save the whole document. And then you've got things like DLP service improvements on the back end as well, which is just incredible. So really cool. The Microsoft Graph, if you saw the Connect conference and saw some of the Microsoft announcements the last couple of weeks, that's also a great part of it. Being able to integrate into other services, so not just the work services that we're familiar with, but the consumer services as well. And going along with that is all of the Office Graph and Delve kind of announcements. So Office Graph is a whole methodology really of how we compute the relationships inside of the graph. So all of the objects, the people, the conversations, the content that they're working on, and being able to extend that now even with the consumer aspects and have API access to that is really exciting. Delve is obviously that first experience that we've all had in Office 365 of an integrated proactive search engine, and it's just a great tool, and we'll be seeing a lot more of that. And Power Apps, I have to talk about that. So even though it's still just in preview, and it's a very limited preview still, but from that perspective, what I'm excited is to see that business users will be able to construct mobile applications themselves in a very easy interface, really making it simple for people to build an application instead of having to go and ask for developer time or IT time, but really empowering business analysts to build something that's useful for them and being able to update and change those things appropriately. So Power Apps really shows what the future is going to hold for us.
And I know we're going to talk about that a bit in the predictions as well. So
definitely, yes, I know we'll talk about those a lot more. And then another security one. What is with me and security? Who knew? So it's really important for me, though. So I think it's one of the huge differentiations, actually, of Office 365. It really is. So really having your own key. So they have this ability right now. Obviously, Microsoft has everything very secure inside of the data center. Your data is always encrypted at rest. It's encrypted in transit as well as part of SSL. But now you'll be able to go one more step, which is basically the ability to have your own key in Office 365. So only your organization will have your encryption key for your data. So even if your data was handed over or stolen by somebody, that person would not be able to unencrypt it without your key. I think it's incredibly important. I think it really shows the degree of trust that you should have in the Microsoft Office 365 service, really should, and the ability to be able to have that own key so you manage your own data and you manage your own protection that way.
And I like how every awesome top 10 list, every awesome list goes to 11, like yours.
Absolutely. Of course it does. And so I had to talk about Outlook groups. So it is a new concept, and we talked a lot about groups during Ignite, and now the formal name for what we were calling before Office 365 groups, people now call them Outlook groups. I just want to make that clear, because a lot of times I've heard people saying different group nomenclature, and so it is Outlook groups. So they're kind of the new group that's out there. And you'll see a lot of integration, obviously, into the other services. So you're seeing the integration from an Exchange perspective, but with Planner, with SharePoint team sites, there's all kinds of stuff coming down the pipe for those too. And I think it's a great way to get some of the team collaboration done in a very targeted manner, and having that integrated SharePoint experience as well as a calendar and all those functionality associated with it too. So really
awesome.
Cool stuff. I'm so happy to see all these things.
Ben, let's jump over to your list here.
Uh-oh. All right. Thanks for my foot there. That is exactly what it looks like currently. Of course, I took the right color, F47 321. Thank you. Yeah. So what we're talking about, Christian was asking us, hey, what did you like, or what was the big announcements that you think marked something in the last 12 months? So I put a couple of things. I added some thoughts just so I don't forget. Obviously, for me, SharePoint 2016 and on-premises release. This was a big announcement because for a while we weren't even sure. There was some rumors. SharePoint is finished. There's no nothing. But they came out with SharePoint 2016. There's still things coming out. We don't know how it's going to get released in the future very soon as well. So very exciting. And then of course, like I said, of course I put my dog. So he's gonna start barking here just because I'm the one talking now. But it's important because even as an ISV, as partners, not knowing whether or not there's going to be a next on-premises version was very scary for a lot of us. So that was a very big news for us to be able to know that. So we know that now SharePoint's sticking around. Groups for Office 365 or Outlook groups. When I was talking about the last 12 months, immediately I think about Ignite and sitting in that room when I was being, showed groups for Office 365 back then, and thinking, okay, is this going to be the replacement to Yammer? Is this going to be the replacement for Team Sites? I'm not quite sure. There was a lot of confusion. I think it's one of the moments of the last 12 months. I think it's still confusing today. A lot of people are still not sure what groups are. So I think that was one of the key things of 2015 as well. Next. Yeah, OneDrive for Business Sync. OneDrive for Business Sync, I think it's almost like I don't know. It's the funny topic of the year. It's not even. We just say OneDrive for Business now. I shouldn't say that. That's bad, but 2015 has been the year of OneDrive for Business Sync issues. I think a lot of businesses, some customers completely left just because of that and went to things like Dropbox for their businesses. So I think it's definitely a big thing of 2015, at least for Microsoft. Definitely hurt them quite a bit. We know that there's a new in preview OneDrive for Business Sync engine, and things are changing quite a bit in the future and coming. But for 2015 at least, that was definitely one big thing. Planner, Trello-like, yeah? No, go ahead. Planner, Trello-like card-based task management. I still haven't played with it. I still don't know what it looks like. I can guess because I've been using Trello for quite a while now, and it's the very similar experience. But I think we've been talking about it since Ignite. No, actually, we've been talking about it since Ignite. Publicly, we've been talking about it since a month or two ago. But for me, it was a big part of 2015. I was hoping to see it a lot sooner, play around with it. I think is a big part of something that's going to attach to groups as well, and teams working together. So definitely looking forward to that in 2016 as well.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's great that we're hearing about stuff in advance, but then it's frustrating that we can't then touch it and play with it.
The video portal. I think the video portal is the one big success. I'm not going to say other things are not successful in Office 365, but I would say it is the most successful piece of experiences so far, at least from my perspective, in terms of customers using it. It's a really, really well made using Azure Media Services, which they've been moving very quickly, adding new features, embed in the blog posts, and all kinds of things coming still from the video portal team. And Mark Emroz and whoever else is working on that team at Microsoft. Really, really a big thing for 2015. Delve came out not out of nowhere, but it kind of matured quite a bit this year with responsive profiles becoming more and more the org chart and the place I go to for looking at people's profiles. The blogs, I mean, there is nothing better to write blog posts now in terms of SharePoint, right? In terms of what we had at the office. It's responsive, it's easy to use, it's very medium-like. The activity, the analytics coming up, I think Delve was a big thing for 2015 as well.
Then you've got the Power Apps.
Yeah, of course, Power Apps. We've been, again, hearing about it for almost over a year now. I think Power Apps was called Project Sienna back when we looked at it as well, and Power Apps, now that it is being talked about, yeah. But it came from Ish, right? It's very similar-ish. Very, very exciting. I think a lot of people have been talking about what do I do now for workflows, what do I do now for apps. My business has an inventory SharePoint list. We need to be able to access it mobile. And forms, not saying it's an info path replacement, of course, but providing some kind of form data entry. So very excited about Power Apps, big thing of 2015, although not completely out yet. Cloud versus on-premises. A lot of people were talking to me, I mean, we're in the migration space, and it was battle. No, I'm sticking with my servers. You never get me to the cloud. I think now everybody's kind of, you know, I have my two things I did at the SharePoint Fest keynote, actually. You know, SharePoint, step one, choose where you want it. You can have it on premises. You can have it as SharePoint Online. Step two, Office 365 experiences or these add-ins, you can plug them into your SharePoint wherever they are. It's not competing. It's to make it better. So either, I think hybrid now is much more accepted than it was. Once again, that was a big thing for this year. Number 9.
Number 9.
Renewed. This really marked me. I think we went to the MVP Summit. We went to the European SharePoint Conference literally the week after, and we had Jeff Teeper. Not only is he back on the team, and for new guys that don't know necessarily who Jeff Teeper is, and frankly, I didn't really care back in the day when I was strictly doing SharePoint consulting. Hey, who's working on the team? I don't care. I got a product. It's got to work with my customers, and that's what. But it does make a difference of who is kind of leading and what is their history. So that is a big plus. And of course, on stage, having SharePoint and OneDrive in the middle of a circle, and him saying renewed focus on SharePoint, and us actually seeing what's coming. I'm very excited. Big thing for 2015, kind of saved it a bit for me. And a switch on Microsoft's strategy with Ignite and WPC. Microsoft kind of just switched over and said, you know what? All their messaging, if you look at all the slides from any Microsoft person anywhere, you're going to see the words transformation, reinventing, productivity, kind of trying to tell IT that you need to change and things need to change. And I think 2015 has been a big year to help IT realize from Microsoft that, hey, we can't just release 3 years. That's not just us. It's you at the office as well. You need to change subtly, of course. That was my 40 minutes of last top 10.
And that last one, I think is great because, you know, Satya last year at WPC, that was his first, presentation where he keynoted WPC and talked about the transition to platforms and productivity. But we didn't really see it in action until the beginning of this year. So I think that's a great point. Yeah. And over to Mark.
Okay, so you're gonna see a couple of things from me on this one. One is I'm very bad at making lists. The other is I can't count. And the third is, of course, the obvious one. I'm really lazy. So I do have a few things, but I don't have enough. I think so. Office Graph, I think, really has been the big story over the last couple of years. I think it started as a 2014 thing, but people are starting to understand as all of these new experiences are knitting together, and we're seeing what's going on with Group and Delve and some of the analytics and just all kinds of things that are starting to sit on or use or take advantage of the Office Graph. People are starting to understand how cool that concept is. I'm seeing people writing blog posts, hey, I did this with the Office Graph, whereas about this time last year, pretty sure that they had seen a slide about it, but they weren't quite sure what it was all about. So that's sort of an underlying thing to a lot of the stuff that's been going on this year. There's a new next-gen Office 365 dashboard. I think that one of the worst things about SharePoint forever has been that the back end has been an ugly and sort of painful experience to manage. This new dashboard starts to bring a, I hate to use the word modern, but a, you know, like a fun and grown-up interface, more of a, you know, 20th century or whatever, 21st century, whatever the term would be, dashboard to help make admin tasks simpler. Because Office 365's sweet spot to me is actually smaller businesses, not the enterprise. I know that we could have a debate about that all day long. We need to have better admin tools. Most of the people who work with the admin tools at my clients have no idea what all that stuff is. It's very confusing to use. I think the new Office 365 dashboard is going to go a long way to making it almost a consumerish product, which is really where it ought to be in the long run.
I think that ties into some of what Naomi mentioned too around security. It's not just about SharePoint. It needs to be a layer that's across all the services that come through Office 365. And so we're seeing not just, I mean, there are improvements to each of the individual workloads, but you're also seeing more and more that's across the entire stack.
Sort of meta, if you will.
That could be a t-shirt.
I think this year is where we've really seen these platform-independent apps from Microsoft. I don't remember the day that I first downloaded an Office app on my iPhone or started using Outlook, but I think it was all during this year. And that's a huge thing. Microsoft has started to make these applications available on whatever platform you want. And the data stores that drive those experiences, I hate that word, but the way we interact with those applications, the data stores are wherever. We can always open what we've got going on. We can open our Word documents, our Excel documents. We can check our email on our iOS devices, on Android devices, on whatever. It doesn't make any difference anymore. So rather than Microsoft going for the desktop, they're going for the entire electronic screen ecosystem, which is, I think, a huge change in strategy from what we would have seen if we were talking about this last year. So that's a big thing, I think, and that fits into Naomi's Office 2016 item as well, because it's sort of that part of that wave. There were purchases. Microsoft bought some companies at Copley, and when I sent the list in, that task thing, I was reminded that that's Wunderlist. I know a guy named. No. I know a guy named Wunderlich, so that always confused me. So they've started to buy some of their strong competition in the marketplace and fold that functionality into number 3, right? So Copley really became Outlook on at least on iOS. And we're seeing some of the Wunderlist stuff rolling into maybe the planner interfaces. We're seeing a lot of very rapid assimilation of these external companies. They didn't buy Trello, but who knows, right? I mean, we see Planner. So I think we'll see. Well, I can't do a prediction yet, right? We're talking about last year. No predictions. I won't say anything. No, I won't. Next, what Ben said.
Great way to round out a top 10 list, Mark.
Yeah, so what happened was I saw everyone else's lists before I made my list. So Ben had a really good list. I thought we were going to combine them all together, so now I just look like a heel. But you hire a convicted felon.
Agreed. we'll just jump forward. Okay, I'll go through mine pretty quick here. Is it showing up there? There we go. Yeah, so like we've discussed here, Taper returning to SharePoint and also picking up OneDrive, and we certainly knew that there were some big problems to solve. I think the biggest message here for me was the fact that there was recognition that Microsoft had dropped the ball in talking about SharePoint. I think we saw this a year and a half ago where people kept saying, it's like, why is Microsoft not saying the word SharePoint? They keep talking about Office 365 and all these other things and what's going on, what can we read into what's not being said. And people, as we do, and because we're blogging so much and talking about stuff, and in our 24-hour news cycle here, people got concerned. And so this was a strong message that, no, Microsoft understands SharePoint's important, it's not going anywhere. And so we need to re-emphasize that. So having Teeper back definitely helps cement that. Again, it's the fact that on-prem, not going around. I think we've talked about that. Office 365 Planner, that is, it's a, for somebody that comes from a project management background and the need for project management light capability other than something lighter than, easier than, more accessible than Project Server, having this kind of automated next-gen experience, there's that word, Mark, that you love, but having something that is going to give me data in real time about what's happening with various tasks and lists and that Trello-like experience is going to be really powerful. Now we need to see it, play with it, see what's actually there, see what they do to it. And honestly, my biggest concern is that they try to do too much and make it too complex, but we'll see. That'll be stuff for us to talk about into the new year. Power Apps. This is a huge thing. Again, my concern with Power Apps, this is, at the MVP Summit, when they demonstrated this, I think it was one of the best demos, most inspiring, got people genuinely excited about some of what we were seeing, and then we couldn't talk about it. But now with that announcement out there, putting the power into the hands of the power users and the IT pros to be able to go and end users very easily go and put simple business logic in to automate some of these repeatable processes is just huge. Now, I would caveat say my concern, and we'll get into the prediction side, but is again that Microsoft doesn't out-design their end users on this. And then, I don't want to see this go the direction of InfoPath and SharePoint Designer and other things where that it doesn't quite fit and then it's taken away at some point. I want Microsoft to think carefully about this. All right. Anyway, excited about that news. Of course, Office Graph, general availability, the Microsoft Graph and that stuff, and we're just scraping the surface of what we're going to see that'll be capable because of the data that is made available. And this, all this, I'm looking at this, I'm talking about this from a SharePoint perspective. I think we're just, again, scratching the surface of what we're going to start to see, especially out of the partner community around the Office Graph. Now, GigJam. Now, I brought this up because it's not a real thing. It's an R&D effort, but I brought it up because it has more to do, and I've likened it to kind of like NASA. How much does the space program affect me day to day? Zero. However, the NASA program and just the drive to go into outer space and to go to the moon or to go to Mars, so many other technological benefits come out of that, having that program in place. I was excited not by what GigJam is today, but just some of the, if you think about like the Cortana and the Delve Analytics, the analytics side of that, and the ability to go and take any third-party app, any solution that's out there, have these containers, these wrappers around these, and be able to treat them as a service. Whether or not Microsoft, I don't know what that process looks like to take these. If you've not seen GigJam, you don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh no, it's frozen. Did he freeze?
And we lost Christian.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's a bad face
and
to
he's
get
got
stuff
the
on
slides.
too. Yeah.
We're talking about GigJam. Wow. Okay. Well, if you haven't
Naomi,
seen,
you know something about GigJam, right?
yeah, if you haven't seen GigJam, there is a demo given. Julia White gave it a great demo, so you're able to watch the replay of that. There was one at WPC, which is out there, so you can see that. And basically, it is a way of, as Christian mentioned, a way to look at the data services across different applications and to be able to create those applications and on the fly, basically essentially pulling in data sources that you need to solve a decision or solve a process issue and being able to do that on the fly. So it's kind of the extension of the trend we're seeing with Power Apps, basically, where we're democratizing the ability for end users to create the applications that they need on the fly. So it's kind of thing. Christian, are you back?
Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry, I could hear and I could see you guys the entire time, so sorry, I just lost audio there. But thanks for wrapping that up and stealing my thunder on that. Thanks.
We try. We got your back here.
I'll just jump to the next one. So Azure Active Directory and the maturing of Azure and the services, I think, was also a big advance this year. And I think people are starting to really look at and say, look, we really can do the scenarios that we need and a lot of the hybrid scenarios that we need using Azure. Azure is, enterprise scale. It's maturing. I think we're going to hear more and more, the services that are being made available through Azure to make a lot of this stuff possible. As I mentioned, the Delve and Cortana analytics roadmaps, that stuff announced. I think we don't have a lot of detail. We're not yet playing with it in depth, but it's pretty exciting. Some of the promise of the data that we're going to be getting out of these tools. The Outlook groups or Office 365 groups, obviously that was a big news. There's still a lot of questions about the impacts of this, but it answers some needs. It solves some problems. There's still big questions around governance and administration of those things and how it plays in the overall mix.
It's getting a lot better in the announcements. It looks promising. I think it definitely. Anyways, we'll talk about it.
Agreed. I completely agree. And then, just as we talked about at the beginning here, Nadella talking about platforms and productivity. I think that this was a huge thing. Like driving on that message, I think it was the right message for Microsoft to come out with and saying corporate-wide, this is what this means, and sticking with that. Now let's jump into the predictions. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
All right. Predictions for 2016. Okay, sorry.
You're so much better at singing that than I would be.
All right. So we got, I think, there was some overlap here. What, Mark? You have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say this is a little different than a lot of the prediction list you'll see for the next year because we actually are going to make all these come true.
Of course.
Right. We're going to use our powers here.
Superpowers.
It's going to be pretty cool.
Did you not hear the
go ahead.
sounds and see the magic flickering? I'm assuming in the part of the recording we'll have the visual effects where the screens will get all fogged and wavy and stuff. Okay.
Like the 1960s version of Star Trek.
Note that we need to do those visual effects. All right. So let's kick things off. So Ben, I put people's names on these, but of course we can all talk about each one of these. But why don't we have each of us kind of introduce them?
Yeah, so I think prediction for 2016 is going to be a big year, big year for SharePoint, I think. Not only is it the official release of 2016, but I think we know Jeff Teeper is back in the team. They've announced some very important things, such as as I said earlier, renewed focus on SharePoint. Us that were lucky enough to see what is actually coming, we know, or I believe it's going to be a very exciting year for SharePoint. I think they talked about, what was it, the word exactly? Modernizing the team sites, which frankly, even though it changed this blue squares now on the home page, it's essentially the same team site as 2010. And I mean, the concept is very similar to 2007 even, which is not bad. It's great for, I think it's one of those scenarios where they said, it's working, leave it as it is, but it's getting modernized, it's getting revamped. I think the team site's going to be a big thing this year. And SharePoint 2016 and on-premises in general, if there's going to be some announcements coming at the same time as SharePoint 2016 gets released and stuff like that. So my prediction for this year is definitely hearing a lot about SharePoint as of collaboration as team sites. Maybe it's going to get talked as it is integrated with groups, but it'll still be the SharePoint team site. So very excited. What does I say? Especially as a marketing strategy to get more people to Office 365 and using the SharePoint work. I think at the moment, if I don't have the stats, I don't think anyone but Microsoft has the stats. But from what I see, although we have a large amount of people going to Office 365 with SharePoint, I think still today a lot of people are using mostly Office 365 for emails. And it is the goal of Microsoft to get people to use other workloads, because for them, right, they're selling a product. The more people are using multiple things in Office 365, the more likely you are to stay and pay for Office 365 and stay with Microsoft. So I'm assuming it's going to be a huge revamp of SharePoint and the team side to make it amazing and up to today's standards, so that they can actually sell Office 365, or rather have more people use Office 365 for collaboration. And of course, we're going to get it on premises as well. So very excited. What are your thoughts?
I've heard some stats from competitors about adoption. I don't know if you guys have heard anything, but it's somewhere around like 35 to 40% adoption.
The competitors of Office 365 are saying that there's not a lot of usage.
Right. Yeah, and I think I read something in CMS Wire about it that put it like 35 to 40% or something like that. I don't know what the stats are. It'll be interesting with Gartner's events coming out this spring, where they're the ones that came up years ago, 3 years ago, that Microsoft adopted their percentages, saying that 35% of SharePoint users would, or companies would never move to the cloud, and those kind of data points. So when they come out with their conferences, which are in, I don't have the list up, I think it's at the end of February or early March, their next event, we might have an update to some of those stats.
Mm-hmm.
I think this thing that Ben just took a lot of time to say is I've been thinking about it as SharePoint's back and it's badder than ever, right? I mean, it didn't leave, but it's still here, and I think this is going to be a good year for SharePoint. That's why I'm hanging on to that MVP.
Well, Mark, there you go. So you could talk about your prediction here.
Yeah. I think that this is, maybe it's an irrelevant or subtle thing, but I think Microsoft is starting to look cool again. A couple of years ago, a lot of people were saying that Microsoft has seen its better days, and we weren't going to see much out of them anymore. They were going to get their lunch eaten by Google and Apple and you name it, anybody. And I think that tide has turned. I think that we're seeing that Microsoft has become responsive. They don't just fit all screens. They fit all needs these days. They're trying to go for the entire market across the board, from consumer to the largest enterprises, and they're succeeding. And they're doing it in a very hip and fun way. These UIs that they're building in Office 365, I think they're up there with anything that anyone's doing these days. It's no longer we look at what's going on the consumer web and say, gee, I wish Microsoft would do some of that nice stuff. They're actually doing it. They're coming out with things. If you look at things like the planner, they're right up there with what the best out there are doing. So I think that this is going to be a good year for Microsoft's sort of market image, and it's going to be because of their work, not because of some sort of big PR spin, which I know they've tried in the past and not necessarily gotten anywhere with.
So I think that ties into, I don't know what you guys think, and Naomi, about the whole platform was productivity, as we were just talking about Nadella's announcement. But I mean, it's almost like the decision to, I know that they haven't officially walked away from the mobile OS, but the decision to go and support the platforms, the OSs where people are working and having the best productivity solutions for those operating systems was a huge decision. I think that, Mark, I don't know if you disagree, but that was probably what enabled it, led it down that path of being cool again, was recognizing, let's go and create the right solutions where people are already working.
That's right.
Yeah, they've broken out of the boxes that they were keeping themselves in, I think, to a large degree. Go ahead, Naomi.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, Mark. I'm sorry. So yeah, I think I totally agree, because it's really around understanding where people want to do their work and then making sure that the software is available there, which is how Microsoft got started. Let us just remember that, people. So the hardware platform was there. Microsoft came in and added a layer of value on top of it from software, right? From an operating system perspective, as well as from an application and productivity perspective. And I think that making sure that focus, what Microsoft has always been good at, right, is being available on those different platforms. So I think it's really the aspect of looking at what really fits from their perspective in the strategic fit. So I do think, you know, we're going to see some fallout from the Nokia acquisition. I think, you know, it's a good experimentation perhaps, but I think that there is the recognition that, you know, its own platform is separate from the productivity applications that it's delivering. So I think it's a customer of those productivity applications, just like any other customer. I think that's probably the way to think about it. And then, yeah, to put this back into SharePoint here, I'm expecting SharePoint, this is kind of a weird prediction, but SharePoint 2010, which is, you know, end of support life and all this, you know, for general folks anyway, it's really becoming, I think, the XP. And there's always a machine. Even just this weekend, I saw a machine running XP. Like everywhere I go, somewhere there's a machine still running XP, right? Even though it's like gone from the support perspective and anything else. So I feel like SharePoint 2010 is going to be that SharePoint that stays for forever, that in, you know, 10 years time we're all going to be talking at conferences and saying, who's still running SharePoint 2010, and the hands will still go up, right? I really feel that way. So I feel that it's kind of the base now. Before, you know, we might have had people still in 2007, but I do feel like SharePoint 2010 is going to be around for a long time still. And though even though we'll have obviously some great ways to overcome some of that content from a hybrid perspective, from a search perspective. So, Mark, you want to talk about billions of dollars?
Yeah. So I had to look it up to see how big that Office 365 is supposedly now. I think it's less than 6 billion. I'm not exactly sure. You know, I didn't try and go through Microsoft's financial statements with any kind of detail. But I think that my point here is that Office 365 is going to keep on its growth tear. I think that it's barely tapped, like I said earlier, the potential of the SMB market, which I think is actually where the sweet spot is. And as it becomes a more well-known service offering and people see what a value it is, you know, for somewhere between $5 and $20 a month per employee, you get an incredible amount of capability. So I see that growth. You know, I don't know how much it's going to hockey stick or whatever, but I think that the slope of that vector will probably increase over the next year. And you know, if it's 7 billion or 8 billion or 10 billion, I'm not exactly sure what it is. But the point is, I think we have yet to see the potential for Microsoft from a revenue perspective that Office 365 represents.
My prediction was 7.2 billion, but I went with the more conservative. I agreed with you.
Yeah.
I'm just a little more of a risk taker than you are, I guess.
It's 200 billion a month. Ben, we can't hear you.
We lost your audio, Ben, or you're on mute.
You're mumbling.
I muted myself because you never know. All right, yes.
Never know what?
I have a dog. He could decide that he doesn't like the mailman today and starts barking. The joys of working from home. That's why I never do it. SharePoint becomes similar to Windows 10, and that there will be major updates, kind of not for free or not for free, I don't know, but you know, I talked about that in a blog post right after Ignite, or not too long after Ignite, and I was kind of thinking about it, and I said, you know, there's been a lot of talk about SharePoint going away, and then there were also talks about Office 365 moving very, very quickly and adding things all the time, and that, you know, SharePoint on premises didn't necessarily make a lot of sense anymore because of how quickly things are evolving in our industry. And then we, you know, quickly after that, Windows 10 team is like, this is the last Windows ever for now. But that's their statement, right? And they're going to be adding new, and I think there's just one big patch that came out recently adding some things as well, but I'm not as familiar in the Windows platform. But, you know, let's think about SharePoint 2016 for a minute. What do we know? What did we see? We know that they called it an IT preview, and we know that the whole focus, almost entirely, has been the infrastructure. How smooth does it run? You know, how easy it is to patch, which I think is interesting. Zero downtime patching. Is that for us, or is that for them to patch us with new things? I think it's interesting to see where it's all going. Could SharePoint 2016 be the last SharePoint, but there's still new SharePoints coming every couple of months? I don't know. But I think, you know, we've seen, they've talked about modernized team sites. They've talked about a lot of things, and then we haven't seen them in the beta. So that's and we know it's coming out very soon. So my logical thought process is it can only mean that there's going to be another patch that's going to make the team site they are talking about eventually. So that would be my prediction for it.
So, no, definitely agree with that one. All right, let's talk about complementary functionality with SharePoint. So we talked a little bit about OneDrive, and OneDrive for Business at least has not had a good year, we'll say. But I am predicting that 2016 really will be the year for OneDrive for Business, and stay with the force, people, because I do think things are really coming forward at a very rapid pace now. It's taken a very long time. There have been, lots and lots of issues. Microsoft has been very open about it, that there have been a lot of problems, and I personally have experienced a lot of problems too because of it. But I am still believing that this year, 2016, we will see it become a Dropbox killer. I really do think the time is right for the wrapping up of all of those functionality together, and making sure that it actually works together in a unified way. So the unicorn that is Dropbox, I believe, will not continue. Anyway, go Christian.
Yeah, interesting. And here, I mean, I'm half joking about this strike force to go and track down. You're talking about, the SharePoint 2010. I mean, there's still 2001 and 2007. A lot of 2007 out there. Occasionally, I know we all kind of do this. We ask various audiences we're presenting to, like, who's still running which version. And I'm always amazed. There's always one or two hands if people still running 2001. I mean, so I think there's going to be a more concerted effort to go after people more on 2007 to move them forward and get them off to the next version. So I think this is a very, very safe prediction for this next year. But I think that there's going to be a more concerted effort there.
I think we're already starting to see that a little bit. I think it's called Fast Track, right? They haven't talked about any SharePoint Fast Track or whatnot, but already if you look at it, they announced that they would migrate, I think, file shares. People that have file shares, they'd do it for them so that they could get to Office 365. So yes, I agree with you. I think that we'll try to strike force to upgrade people to the latest version. I think that strike force is actually called Fast Track at the moment, perhaps, and I don't think it'll be for just the latest version. I think it'll be for Office 365 because that's still their main focus. But yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Agreed.
Yeah, there seems to be an across-the-board realization what this support stuff costs them. If they can move people forward to Windows 10 and SharePoint 2016, based on Benjamin's predictions on the previous slide, then their support costs go way down. They just keep pushing those fixes and improved functionality, and there's no more big splash. They can spend their money on the new stuff, not the old stuff.
Good for security too. Just saying.
Oh yeah, that.
Just saying.
All right, Ben.
Go hybrid.
Yes, forgot. It's me again. You guys excited? I'm going to talk another 20 minutes. IT starts looking at hybrid solutions quite heavily to fight the growing rogue IT problem in organizations. That's what I was talking about earlier. I mean, every customer that we go meet, whether it's at conferences or here in Montreal, it's always the same story. It's like, yeah, we have some people on like Facebook, YouTube, or they're using Slack. It's not really official, or they're using this. It's not really official, or even me, I was at a conference last week. How do we send them our PowerPoint presentations? They have their own SharePoint, but we send them using public OneDrive. Right? So there's always another way, and I think that's a growing problem that we have in organization, especially for security, for compliance, but just to keep the knowledge within the organization when people leave. So to fight that problem, I think people are going to look a lot more at hybrid solutions to tag on to their SharePoint platform.
I think it's a good segue for Naomi.
All right, so the network is the way that we work these days, right? So when we think about the teams that we're collaborating inside of our organizations, we're often composed of contractors, consultants, outside advisors, the people you might be working with. And so I think the security and privacy part of it, and I don't know why I'm going on about security and privacy so much, but it really is crucial to making all of this stuff work correctly inside of your organization. So thinking about this network structure and how we effectively apply things like DLP and other learning mechanisms as part of that. So looking at things like the external perspective as well as the changes that we're having in the United States in terms of employment law. So making sure it's security and privacy inside of Office 365 and making sure that works for your organization and can be flexible and as part of this. One of the other points on top of this is really we're looking at things like, if you might have heard of the LEADS Act, you can look it up. It's LEADS, like LEADS. And one of the areas we're seeing inside of the United States is that there needs to be a significant amount of updates in the legislation in terms of how consumer privacy in the cloud is being looked at. So we need to actually have a framework put in place of this. One of the reasons you might have heard about Microsoft fighting this court case in Dublin a lot, and so that's kind of one of the issues in terms of who has access to your data, what happens when law enforcement asks for access to your data, you know, what should the service provider be able to do. And so it's a very important thing for maybe a personal life and a work life. You can check out, there's an organization called Voices for Innovation, so voicesforinnovation.org, and you can check out more about the LEADS Act there and why it's important in the US too. All right, Ben, you want to talk about Office 365?
Groups.
Ben.
Yes. No, absolutely. I think, I mean, I said becomes the new standard. I think me too. I sent it as a draft and didn't realize it was going to be on the public PowerPoint. But for me, everything is going towards. Yeah. Always be careful what you send to Christian.
Right, going out on the web.
What could be used against you.
And your photos on Facebook go the same threat there.
So Groups Office 365 becomes the new standard. I think everything is going this way. It's not a thing. It's not a product. It's not a platform. Groups is just like if you think about security groups or distribution lists, it's a group of people put together. The difference here, it's in Office 365, and automatically it provisions certain products and links them together to that group. And I think it's a good way to say and realize that people in organizations, different teams in organizations, different groups of people in organizations don't all work the same way. So saying that here SharePoint's going to be good for 100% of you doesn't work. However, creating a team and letting them use either the calendar from Outlook or a little piece of SharePoint, a little piece of Power BI, then a Power App to create a mobile. They use what they want from the different products, but it's linked together through Office 365's graph. I think it's going to be, with the new things coming out, they've announced better management, e-discovery, and a lot more in terms of how to manage these groups. And I'm very, very happy to hear. And for me, it's a no-brainer. It's prediction. I'm almost ready to guarantee it, folks. I think groups is going to be a big thing this year.
I think that's a good segue, Naomi, into your prediction here.
A lot of segues here today.
There are. It's because you have no foot. Sorry. So the categorization of collaboration tools, I think, is important. Just because there are this issue, I think we're seeing people still categorizing collaboration tools in the old way in terms of, well, this is for instant messaging, and this is for chat and email, and then this is for social conversations. That is wrong. I'm just going to say this point blank. And so what really matters is the scenarios and the tasks that people are trying to get accomplished. I'm going to write a lot more about this in 2016, but the doing things the way we've universally done them in terms of this is an IM product that also does a little bit of chat, and then we do something else that does email. This is the wrong way of thinking about it. I'm not sure if Microsoft is going to adapt around that, but I certainly think that inside of organizations the reality is that if the product works for the things that people are trying to do, that's the issue that you have to solve, and not worrying about, well, is it an instant message, or is it an email, or is it a post? And that's going to be a big problem. So.
And here is a nuclear bomb of a prediction from Mr. Anderson.
Chris? This is where I beat Marc up.
So I know we're going to have some disagreement about this, but I just see Yammer stewing in its own juices. I don't know that it's going to stick around. I think part of the problem for Microsoft has been its integration of Yammer to really be a part of a suite of anything, and a lot of people I think have moved away from Yammer a bit. It's been a bit of a I don't know what the right term would be. People have said some interesting things about it, let's put it that way. So I think that while there were some good technology bits that came with Yammer and some interesting thinking, it's sort of been shuffled off to the side, and I think maybe it's going to be a bit of a write-off. Though maybe it's been long enough that they won't have to do that. I am not an accountant.
I'm just going to move things along. I'm going to pull up. So Ben, I know you have yours. We'll continue this topic.
Yeah,
I was going to say that
I mean, I'm in between. I think Yammer is still good. I still think it's going to be here. I don't think it's going to be a write-off. I think it's in a period of figuring out and changing. I think Yammer is going to be Yammer, and there's too many people on Yammer. There's still a lot of people in organizations using Yammer. I think it's going to stay that way, but I think we're going to see pieces of Yammer perhaps starting to appear in other products, right? Microsoft's historically, this is why I'm doing this prediction. Hopefully I'm wrong, but essentially historically they've taken parts of products and then put them in other products that they've had, such as why rebuild threaded conversations when you already have a tool that does it, let's say put it in a team site or whatnot. So yeah, I'll stop talking. I know Naomi wants to receive.
I know, Naomi, then I'll let you jump in on this, but I think across those things is that this idea that it's more and more essential to the way that we're working, but my prediction for this next year is we're going to be talking about it a lot less. It just becomes this ubiquitous social fabric across these other business solutions. The other half of this prediction is that we're going to be talking more about the case studies and the business solutions and less about the technologies that get us there. So I think that is going to be a shift in the conversation that's happening around it. Anyway, before we jump to the next one, Naomi, I'll let you jump in.
Because I'm going to be mad, right? So it's like,
you can't hit me from here.
I know. So first off, let us remember that millions and millions of people are using Yammer. So I hate to sound the death knell. It's just like SharePoint, right? When we hear it's going to be Yammer, everything's moving away from Yammer. No, people, millions upon millions, literally, are using it. I know how many people are using our products, and our products are just a subset of what it is that Yammer serves. So it's literally millions. So the issue here, folks, is that, it's the way of interacting, and it's figuring out what works inside of your organization. There are a plethora of tools. There always have been. There will continue to be so. There will be more and more consumer tools that make the bridge into enterprise work. We'll see things like the Facebook at Work type experiences. What we will not see is the integration the same way as it has with Office 365. What I think you will see Yammer focusing on is really around decision making and how to drive better decision making. You're going to see a lot more of that because the productivity and analytics piece of it is going to be pushed to delve and being able to look at what's going on inside of your Office 365 tenant to actually give you some statistics, which we're going to talk about later. But I think the Yammer part of it is really all about understanding what it is that you do with the information to make a better decision. And Yammer is really the essential way of thinking about that, even if it's not the tool specifically, right? It's the thought process of how that happens inside of your organization and the use of a network inside of your organization. All right, I'm being prompted to go forward, so I will move on. This is 2016, the democratization of data visualization. I really think this is about understanding how that's millions and millions, Marc, really. More than 2 million, Marc, Yammer users. I'm just going to say that publicly. At least 8 million, so let's just be sure about that. So before we sound death knells on things, let's remember that this is a very well-established product. So the democratization of data visualization, this is about Power BI, but it's also about how we make sure that the visualization of that data is communicated effectively. We are seeing more and more tools adopting this very visual metrics and being able to show that effectively inside of your organization. So we're seeing the dashboards, we're seeing the kind of planner interfaces, we're seeing all of these kind of organizational analytics pieces come together. And so having tools for how we show data in a different way so that it actually can make sense to humans, especially when we have massive amounts of data in the background. background. So the visualization piece is all about how do we empower end users to be actually able to do this. So that's what we're going to see in 2016.
And then I know we've just got a few more, but we're just about out of time here. So I wanted to just, we'll just kind of move this along very quickly. But last couple ones, we talked about the explosion of the business applications. And I think Power Apps is going to introduce this movement again. It's about the analytics, about the data visualizations. There's going to be more and more, easier access to the data for end users to be able to go and do some really cool things through Power BI, through the Power Apps, and through a lot of the capability that we're going to start to see more and more of that surface through Office 365 and SharePoint specifically. And on top of that, and I'm just going to pull these up, if you can just go through them, just a couple thoughts on each one.
Yep, so mobile will be the experience that you design for, and you can be anyone. It could be an end user, it could be a business analyst, and it can be a developer. But it's all about mobile, and it is the experience we want for tools and how we leverage the data, not just for publishing sites or consumption of content.
This one's interesting, and it might be a little bit controversial. I've actually got a blog post that'll be coming out about it, but about SharePoint. Really, the brand that when we talk about SharePoint will become more of the on-prem experience. And it's not about, hey, SharePoint Online is going away. It's not. It's key to a lot of what's going on. But you aren't going to hear as much about SharePoint online because you're going to be hearing about these user experiences that'll be delivered, like Planner. And so SharePoint is pivotal to that technology working. But that's just a branding and messaging. When people are going to be talking about SharePoint, it'll predominantly be on-prem. And then I think, Naomi, you've talked about some of these pieces, but we were in agreement about how these pieces come together.
Yeah, so it's really about figuring out how we measure knowledge-based processes inside of the organization. And this is the first year, 2016 will be the first year where we have wide-scale applicability of metrics with the Volumetrics acquisition as part of it into Office 365 of being able to see productivity in your organization with statistics, which is crazy if you think about it. So we're going to see a lot more of that. And then obviously managing change. This is like a really obvious thing, but I think it becomes a way of skill set of actually demonstrating your IT management and what they're doing as a leadership inside of your organization. And maybe it's a lot more in terms of focusing on how we deliver that change and solutions that work for end users. And we'll actually have the data as part of that. So these knowledge-based processes will actually be able to see what productivity looks like inside of your organization and how you want to increase it. You have to be very careful with that kind of data and how you apply that metric inside of your organization. If we want to do things like reducing meetings, does that also have consequences? But we'll think hard about those areas. But managing that change becomes much more essential skill than actually understanding the technology and being able to make sure that works inside of your organization.
And I know we're out of time here, folks. Thanks a lot so much, Marc, Naomi, Ben, for your time, of course. Thanks you. Well, my company for helping sponsor this. Of course, thanks to IT Unity for hosting this. So Dan and Lyman and Eric and everyone. Of course, you can keep the conversation going. Always use the CollabTalk hashtag. We're actually going to go in depth. We have our tweet jam in like a week and a half. I don't even know when it is, where we're going to be talking about predictions, and it's open to the community via Twitter on CollabTalk. So you'll be seeing the tweets out about that. And of course, you can find us online via Twitter and our email. Please, if you have questions, reach out to us. And our next episode, webisode, will be on January 13th. Webisode 13 on the 13th. It's the magic number for 2016, the number 13. All right. Well, thanks a lot, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Yay!
Thanks everybody.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Happy holidays.